Puni players, Robbett here. If you've watched my Extreme World Yo-kai Budokai video, you know that a new SSS-rank, Extreme Venoct, has been introduced. What you may not know is that he changes the meta, big time. Let's take a look. Extreme Venoct is a member of the Eerie tribe. That means he has access to the Dark Watch, which I was able to grab during that event 9 months ago. Unfortunately, it hasn't been available since, but hopefully it'll come back again as it gives a bonus to all Eerie and Shady Yokai. I've gone ahead and maxed out both his level and Soultimate. At level 1, he has 394 hit points and 548 attack. Both of those numbers go up considerably as you level up. In other videos, I've mentioned that Soultimate level is effectively a progress bar to full potential, so Soultimate level 1 is roughly at 1/7 of full potential. His Soultimate description says it will erase countless yokai in an instant, and we'll put that to the test shortly. Last thing on this page, up in the upper right there's a small purple banner which labels him as Extreme. The next page is new. This is where we find information about his G Soultimate, which is a new concept. The way G Soultimates work is that you fill up the normal Soultimate meter, which in Venoct's case is size 15. Once you've filled that up, you can fill it up again to size 5. If you use the Soultimate when it's only filled up to the first spot, you use his normal Soultimate. If you use it once it's filled up to the G level, then it unleashes the G Soultimate, which for him is just a more powerful version. You can level up the G Soultimate using G Soul secrets, but there's only one available currently, so I haven't used it. The base is 64 points, and I've seen someone who's used a G Soul secrets at 73 points, so it's fair to say level 5 will be 100 points. Somewhat surprising to me, Extreme Venoct also has a skill. This I've decided to max out because it's super useful. Venoct's skill is to fill his soul meter when you take damage. It starts at skill level 1 at 30% and maxes out at skill level 5 at 75%. This means that each time you take damage, in my case, you have a 75% chance to fill the Soultimate meter by 1 increment. Super useful. To illustrate this, I sat for a while on Slimeamander and didn't pop any of Venoct's Puni. It takes a while, but you can see the meter increasing, and once it gets filled the first time, you'll see the familiar OK above it. If you have to, go ahead and use his Soultimate at this point, but only if you have to. After that, it keeps filling, although faster because you only need 5 for the Extreme Soultimate, and then it says G-OK. Because of his damage filling skill, against a real enemy there are very few occasions where I have to bother manually filling Venoct's gauge. If you look closely, Venoct's Soultimate looks like an all-popper. Examples would be Enma Awoken or Kabuki Roid. He's a lot more powerful, however, so what is he really? Recently we've got a lot of auto-poppers. Waru Nolan, Hinotori, where they pop by themselves for around 5 seconds, but none of them do anything like what a Tracer is capable of. If you look at the end of Venoct's Soultimate, you can see that we have a high number of combos, past 100, which is reminiscent of a Tracer. Also, did you notice he stopped time during his Soultimate? So is he a time-stopping, all-popping auto-Tracer? Maybe. Let's dissect it a little bit. Before we get to that, let's compare the two modes of Venoct. First up, we have Venoct and a bunch of boosters, and I've limited him to only filling up the normal Soultimate gauge. With these boosters, that's 345,000 damage. You can see why Extreme Venoct is so game-changing already. Next, I've got him all the way up to ready for his G Soultimate. Same boosters, roughly same random board, and this time it's 477,000 damage. That's almost a 40% increase at G level 1. Back to the question of what exactly Venoct is and how to use him best. There are 2 primary characteristics of tracers beyond the fact that you trace them with your finger. First, they create a lot of combos, and that's why using them in Fever is so much more powerful than outside of Fever. Second, they build damage by popping the Puni on the board, which means that attack boosters become very important, and that the higher the attack stat of the yokai on the board, the more total damage the Tracer will do. Fever stores up all the damage and allows it to build on itself before unleashing it. so let's see what kind of damage we can do outside of Fever. I've flooded the board with only Venoct so we can do a fairly careful assessment. With these boosters, looks like 164,500 damage. Honestly, that's more impressive than most single attackers. But what happens when we go into Fever? Same situation, going to use all the same boosters and a board filled with Venoct. This time we hit 530,000 damage. How incredible is that? That's 3¼ times more damage because it occurred during Fever, which itself only imparts a 10% bonus. With Edison, that will work out to be almost 30 million score, or 3,600 Y money. First criteria, check. Fever matters. Now to look into the second criteria, the attack stat of the Puni on the board. I've flooded the board with Prison Breaker, whom I'm using because of Unity and because he's boosted by the Dark Watch. Before the various bonuses, his attack stat is 504. He's one of the original boosters and it's not very high. The result is that does around 450,000 damage. Next, I'm flooding the board with Dogu Shaku. She's one of my favorite new yokai because she's a super attack booster. She's got a very strong boost, but it only lasts 5 seconds instead of the usual 10. That doesn't matter for us though, because we're only using one Ultimate attack. Dogu's attack stat is much higher at 753, and it shows. The result is 490,000 damage, around 8% higher. I think that pretty much seals it. Even though we can't actually see what's happening, we know he acts like a tracer, so the same rules apply for getting high scores. The fact that you don't actually have to trace yourself is a great equalizing function, because it means that the speed of your device, and whether it's Android or iOS, doesn't matter. All things said and done, he's a meta changer, plain and simple, and I expect that while it may take a while, we'll see more yokai with a similar ultimate in the future. There's one more thing to show that's, well, insane. It turns out that based on how Venoct's ultimate works, if you get a large Puni to be popped during the second half of his ultimate, you can do a lot of damage. I don't mean 500,000 damage, I mean a lot of damage. One of the first methods found for doing this is basically what I did with my Puni Giganticus video. You use Slurpent and flood the board and make a Venoct as big as possible. As you go into Fever, you make sure the Puni is growing, so that it isn't poppable until the key point in his ultimate. This is really tough, however, because the timing has to be really precise. I did this test run before I knew attack boosters mattered, so unfortunately I have Platinum Oni instead of Dogu here, which really limited me. That being said, the result is 12.9 million damage. Seriously, 12.9 million. That's good enough for a score of 840 million and 21,000 Y money. While timing is still an issue, there's actually a much easier way to do this. It turns out that the size of the Puni isn't as much a factor as originally thought. You just need it to be reasonably large and hit that right moment. Here I am on Blazion's stage in the yokai world, so that I'm getting a bonus against the opposite tribe. I'm doing a relatively simple flood of Venoct, who has my highest attack stat on this team at 966, and then I'm going to connect them all. Once he grows to the size I want, I let loose his ultimate. The result is 26.7 million, not kidding, 26.7 million damage. That's a score of 1.7 billion, billion with a B. That's almost 30,000 Y money, and it took me a little over 2 minutes with no continues. One last thing to try. During the Budokai, Extreme Venoct gets a damage bonus in all battles. I'm doing the same technique, but the result is 39 million damage. I don't know what else to say. 39 million damage. That's 2.1 billion score and 33,000 Y money. And that's against Orochi, who's eerie, so I didn't even have tribe strength. Alright, one more time. Last thing to try. A bunch of friends and viewers let me know just after midnight on Monday in Japan that Venoct is allowed for score attack, and a bunch of people had max scores. Worth a try, right? I have mixed emotions about this because I was and still am strongly against the Wibwob glitch that has now been fixed. At the same time, that was different. It allowed you to get into a state where you could play forever without getting knocked out, while this is driven by a very specific technique. I decided it was exciting enough that I'd try it, knowing that I could probably get into the top 500 even if I didn't go this route. This is actually one of my favorite captures, because I managed to pull everything off at the very last second. In fact, time actually runs out before even a single point of damage is shown, just a 0. But you can see it change to the playfield maximum of 99,000 quickly thereafter, and if you look in the upper right, the score climbs to the maximum of 999 million. That's definitely a first for me. Turns out I actually got a raw score of 1.7 billion, as you can see by the bonus where I get an extra 170 million for my 10%. So a total of 1.87 billion without the Budokai bonus, and that lands me in 6th spot. Clearly a few other folks have even better timing. Of course, none of this was intended by the game developers. You simply can't have people getting 30,000 Y money every 2 minutes. A notice is now up which states that while the normal gameplay damage we've seen will remain, this specific case of extreme damage when timed right will be fixed in the next update. Honestly, that's okay. The game needs the right balance between free and pay, or the developers won't make money and then we won't have a game to play. That being said, it sure was fun to check it out. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe to me on YouTube and Twitter for all the latest Puni Puni and Wibwob information. Until the next video, good luck timing your Extreme Venoct.